Hey there. So, I just want to make a little short video here. I might get into some of these topics more in future, maybe in more depth, but I just have been really excited to talk about solar radiation and sun cycles, just because it's something that since I've started following, things kind of just make more sense to me. Going to talk a little bit about the sun, solar radiation, sun cycles, and maybe we'll get to connecting that to influenza, the flu. All right. So life on Earth has since forever evolved with a certain level of radiation from the sun. So the sun emits radiation. So we receive light, we receive frequencies from the sun, and a lot of different. A lot of different frequencies, including what we would call RF frequencies, so radio waves. And we call it radio waves because we're human and we invented radio, and so we gave this umbrella term to all these certain kinds of energies as radio waves. So it's just certain energies. But so that being said, RF waves coming from the sun are like 1 trillion times weaker than RF waves coming from your cell phone or the cell tower, or things like that. And so that's not the point. So there's a lot of, there's radiation that comes from the sun, a certain amount, but it's far less than the radiation that we are exposed to ever since the dawn of electricity and then Wi-Fi and radio, radar, and these other technologies that emit various types of radiation. So the sun emits radiation so the sun has cycles, and they're approximately 11 years. So just like in Earth time. So the Earth has its cycle. The sun, it's kind of like it has like a heartbeat, where over approximately 11 years, it will go from a period of what we call solar minimum, where there's the least amount of activity. And so we base it on the number of visible sunspots, so that we can detect using technology to detect solar activity. So we count how many sunspots there are, which is basically like solar flares. And the sun will move from having very little of this to more and more and more and more until it's at its solar maximum. And we are approximately in a solar maximum right now. And that's why this is really interesting and really applicable. Right, it's approximately every 11 years, but that's not always the case. And so the sun might be in a period of a minimum. It's been recorded for a long time. So 100, 200 years ago, there was a period, or 300, there was a period where the sun was at a solar minimum, where there was not a lot of activity for like I want to say 70 years or something like that. And we have records of, I think, authors writing about the first time they saw Aurora Borealis. Because Aurora Borealis, so, the northern lights, anything like that in the sky is produced by the radiation that's emitted from the sun. And I don't know much about that, but so there's a process there. And so there's solar radiation. It's just part of nature, but it says sun cycles, right? They last a certain amount of time. What happens when we're at a solar maximum? So this is where this gets kind of interesting. Maybe it opens up a sort of Pandora's box if you start looking into this, and I hope you do. But so switching topics just a little. In ancient times, there has always been influenza, so a flu. It's been talked about since ancient Greece. And actually, the word influenza comes from word, I believe a Greek word for meaning influence. And it was thought to be a sickness that came from the influence of the stars, because nobody could figure it out, because it would happen randomly. So it would happen like every 10 years or so, and then in starting in the very late 1700s and then 1800s, some scientists who were able to start to, there were ways of detecting solar activity, started to make the correlation between solar radiation and everybody on Earth getting sick. So it started to become a bit less of a mystery, and there are many names of scientists who started to kind of put these dots together. Now, now you're saying, yeah, but so flu happens every year, right? So, yeah, so in 1888, Nikola Tesla invented alternating current. So he invented the polyphase AC motor. So for a couple decades, electricity had been invented, but it was all in direct current. So one telegraph to one telegraph, sending a message, and there you couldn't keep the flow of electricity going. So everything was direct current. And maybe we'll talk more about all that another time, but you understand. So Tesla invented and patented alternating current, the polyphase AC motor, in 1888. And that made it possible for industries to start utilizing alternating current, which means essentially that one cable could suddenly power up over here and over here and over here and over here, and you could keep the electricity moving, and it was no longer like this one-to-one thing. And over the course of a year, the Earth just literally became wired. It already kind of had been, to a certain degree, but it was really just for the purpose of telegraphs. And AC basically just blew all that out of the water, and railroads got put up, so railways. And yeah, in that year, so most historians would agree that 1889 was essentially the birth of the modern electrical era. And it is, so there was a flu struck in 1889 that lasted for 4 years. So a lot of people died. They got sick, kept getting sick. And then once that died down a little, flu started happening every year. And it has been that way ever since. There's this discussion can definitely go on for, there's a lot more to say, but I feel like this sort of thing, which, you know, if you've never heard this before, if this is like, you know, it's mind-blowing stuff, I feel like it happens best like a little piece at a time, so you don't like lose sleep. I say that, but I don't really practice it. I go all the way, and I'm up all night wondering about things and trying to figure things out. So anyway, it's super interesting though. You know, you start to learn things like that, and it changes the way that you look at things. It changes the way you think about things, and it's really good to wonder. You know, it's good to kind of sit back and realize you don't have everything figured out. And yeah, so we're gonna talk more about all of that. This discussion very easily can lead into talking about germ theory and terrain theory. There's a whole lot more to say, and it's fascinating, I promise. But what I'm kind of most interested in getting to at the moment, just because I'm following it, is talking about the Schumann resonance and how the sun and the earth kind of resonate with each other, and how that affects us. So for now, if you're interested in the solar activity thing, you can, there's solar weather apps you can download. I think there's one that's called Solar Weather Live, maybe. I'm not promoting anything, by the way, just but you can look that up, and you can start following it, and you see if there's a coronal mass ejection, see how you feel a day or two later. Yeah, and I wanna actually talk more about this, but we're out of time for now. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you found this really interesting and enjoyable, and I'll see you all again. Or you'll see me or something, whatever. Leave a comment. Bye.